We're at Deadline and we kick off the show with the men's NXT Championship match between the challenger Femi and the champion Ricky Saints. Both men are desperate to be champ, but only one man can do so. And Ricky is looking for it to be him as he charges at the ruler, getting scooped up in the air and fed a devastating European uppercut for his troubles. And Ricky just desperately crawls to the outside, with the ruler of course following, as the Uranagi is a champ onto the barricade. And he just picks him up one-handed, tossing the revolutionary into the steps. But he's still not done, as he chokeslams the NXT champion through the damn table. Ricky Saints is done, as Femi just throws him back into the ring and waits until eventually the champ rises from the dead, only for him to be put straight back down with a discus elbow. And he effortlessly picks him up and power slams him in one swift motion. But one power slam isn't enough for him, deadlifting Ricky up and putting him down with a second, all while Oba just taunts at his fallen prey. Then he looks for the killing blow, though Ricky is able to escape the fall from grace with a trio of punches. And he fires whatever he can at Femi, nothing being able to make him fall. That is, until he clotheslines Oba over the top rope. Yet he's right back up, so Ricky builds a full head of steam and suicide dives the Conqueror. And he knows he needs more, swinging Oba into the steps, alongside diving off the apron to the floor. But Oba once again rises, so Ricky goes for a second suicide dive, this time being caught into a pop-up powerbomb that lands right onto the hardest part of the ring. Then he throws him back into the ring, slowly joining him as he picks him up by one hand again, only for Ricky to fight back with elbows, though this comeback gets shut down straight away with a knee. And he deadlifts Ricky again, not for a power slam, but for an absolute thunderous F10. Then he just waits again, biding his time for Ricky to rise up, which he certainly does, as he demands for Femi to bring it, and both do just that, as Oba quickly picks up Ricky and is finally able to land the fall from grace. And with just one hand planted on the champion's chest, it's not over. Oba is surprised, which is amplified when Ricky gets out of a release back suplex attempt, kicking Oba in the gut, as Ricky unbelievably Canadian destroys Femi, and he's in the prime position for the spinning tornado DDT to perfectly follow suit. Can Ricky pull off the upset of the century again? Well, no, he can't. Femi is still alive. Ricky doesn't know what to do, aside from going for it again, which goes horribly wrong for him, as he gets choked to the outside like a piece of trash. Ricky's back must be broken in half, and Oba would agree, sending Ricky back into the ring as he connects a Spirit Bomb-inspired fall from grace, bridging into the cover for him to become a two-time NXT champion. He has done it! In his first match back since losing, he has beat that exact same man. He is now back on top of the mountain, and he now has a date with Destiny against none other than Cody Rhodes. Champ versus champ, which may go slightly different in this timeline. But before then, backstage, we see Izzy Dame walking towards the ring before being jumped by her opponent backstage. Tana Paxley doesn't care about the match, she just wants revenge as she drives Dame down with a psycho trap before being separated by officials. The match is off, or maybe just rescheduled. But up next is the Men's Iron Survivor, which deviates from our timeline with entrant number 3 Dion Lennox entering the battlefield, as he goes under the ring and grabs a steel chair. Weapons are legal in this match, so Javon and Leon decide to make a truce, as Javon takes Dion back to the outside, as both men end up diving onto the Dark State member. Then they throw him into the ring as they both climb to the top rope, nailing stereo drop kicks onto the former NXT Tag Team Champion. But then Javon quickly throws Leon out of the ring and covers Dion, even though this doesn't do the job. And this just pisses off Leon, who brings Javon onto the apron, Canadian destroying him onto the hardest part of the ring. But Dion is back up as he chucks him into the ring by his hair and lines him up for a picture-perfect spine buster, quickly going into the cover, which only gets him a 2. So he chucks him out of the ring and goes off to Javon, putting him into the ring as he grabs the chair and swings it at the young OG. Yet one swing isn't enough as he hits chair shot after chair shot onto the body of Javon Evans. It's seemingly never ending until ultimately the chair breaks in 2 as Dion just goes into the cover and gains his first fall. It's unbelievable, and Leon agrees to this, sneaking up on Dion looking for a roll-up, which fails, as when both men rise, Dion nails a picture-perfect dropkick on the youngest in charge. Then he just chucks him into the corner and just slowly and methodically beats down the X Division champion, all while showboating to the crowd. However, this gives Leon Slater a chance as he gets out of his grasp and stuns him with a Hurricanrana before connecting one hell of a Blue Thunder Bomb. Can Leon get on the board? Well, no, he can't just yet, as Dion survives. And it's now Dion who rolls to the outside, leading to Leon making the ultimate play to take out Dion, Swanton 450ing the Dark State member. But what he doesn't realise is that Javon Evans is back in the match, and with all the energy he has left, he takes out his frenemy before nailing a double spring tornado splash onto Dion to get himself on the board. As with Miles born out next, the rest of the match plays out exactly as it did in our timeline, excluding the post-match attack from the Dawn. But following the Young OG's big win is something unannounced, as the NXT Women's North American Champion comes on out. Blake Monroe is in the building, and she decides to issue a Women's North American Championship Open Challenge, which gets answered by none other than Bayley. She's back in NXT, and she's here once again looking to capture some gold. But can she overthrow the glamour Blake Monroe? Well, the match is on, and Blake immediately rolls to the outside. She wants none of the role model, but the crowd do, serenading Bayley and chants. However, this ends up being her own undoing, as while she looks at the crowd, Blake jumps her, hitting shot after shot onto the future Hall of Famer. Yet Bayley fights back, forearming Blake over and over again, before throwing her into the corner and taking down the champ, concluding this rush of adrenaline with a knee. Bayley is on fire, and she keeps on going, tossing her to the outside, going under the ropes to drop kick her down. And she's far from done, tossing Blake into the barricade shoulder first, then she picks her up, puts her back into the ring, goes to the top rope, and looks for a signature elbow drop. But Blake Monroe moves, and with the role model stunned, Monroe takes full advantage of this, hip toss knee striking the former NXT Women's Champion. Blake thinks that could be it. Oh, how wrong she would be, as Bayley kicks out. So Blake just mounts her with strikes, though she quickly turns the pressure around, and with this comes opportunity as Bayley locks in a submission to the legs. But Blake quickly finds the ropes, and she attempts to push back, yet her knees are her own nightmare as she gets caught with an avalanche Bayley to belly out of nowhere. Is Blake done? Well, she isn't quite yet. So Bayley just calls for her to get up as she looks for a rose plant, but Blake blocks this attack, trying for a sneaky roll-up, which doesn't work, as Bayley quite literally kicks back, though she runs into a big, spinning tombstone pile driver. The Undertaker would be proud, or maybe not, as Bayley just kicks out at the last possible moment. And this gives her seemingly a second win, as she double axe handles her twice, gut checks the NXT Women's North American Champion in the corner, hits her signature taunt, and squishes her in that exact same corner, setting her up perfectly for the second Bayley to belly of the match. So Bayley goes for the elbow drop one last time, which inadvertently costs her the match, as she leaps off with no one home again, as Monroe quickly grabs Bayley's arm and her tights to steal the win. Blake Monroe retains. She's just stolen the win from Bayley, but regardless, she is still your NXT Women's North American Champion. Bayley was so close, yet so far, as she won't be walking into Saturday night's main event as a champion. And speaking of, as she walks to the back, we see none other than Sol Ruka herself confront her. Who will stand tall on John Cena's final show? Well, before we find out, after the same North American Championship match as the real world, it's now time for the main event of the evening, as it's time for the Women's Iron Survivor match, kicking off with Sol Ruka and Kalani Jordan. These two are seemingly destined to fight forever, and this is best shown as soon as the bell rings, as both sprint towards each other, Lani hitting the first strike, though Sol is able to counter a kick as she attempts to quickly get on the board through a cheeky roll-up, but Jordan survives, as when both women rise, it's then Kalani who tries to roll up Sol. Although, this similarly fails, as when Sol gets up, she goes for a quick moonsault, which gets evaded as Lani rebounds off the ropes, and Hurricanranas are down, adding a few extra punches for good measure. And this really startles Sol, who gets back spring elbow to the face, and the inaugural Women's North American Champion follows us up with a standing senton and middle rope double axe handle. Then she decides to go all the way up to the heavens, but Sol kicks up and meets her up there as she grabs her by the hair and X-Factors her back down to the mat. Sol wants the first fall bad, yet she still can't get it as Kalani survives. So Sol just plasters her with a shot as she drapes her arm onto the ropes, leading to something indescribable as Sol hits one of the most eccentric dives ever seen. Yet she's still not done, going back in and out of the ring with a suicide dive, and she completes the trilogy with a picture-perfect moonsault and all. And she tries to capitalize off this, throwing Kalani back into the ring as she desperately goes into the cover. But once again, Miss Lani survives. So Sol keeps up on the offensive, hitting a standing moonsault before taking down Kalani with an elbow as she then flies in the sky once more with a bottom rope moonsault as she tries to go for the cover again. But once again, Kalani Jordan kicks out. So Sol goes for the death blow, but the Soul Snatcher gets beautifully turned into a roll-up from Kalani, who doesn't get the point, yet she is able to get back on top of the match. And Sol desperately tries to evade the onslaught, failing miserably as Kalani suicide dives her. Then insultingly, she tries to one-up Sol with her own springboard moonsault. And to round out her trio of dives, Miss Jordan does a flippy splash onto Miss Ruka. And she just taunts away before quickly refocusing onto her opponent, throwing her into the barricade back first. Then she throws her back into the ring and calls for her to get up. The crowd are on their feet, only for Kalani to kick Sol back down, mocking the fans for wanting to see total non-stop flips. As she simply goes on to take down Sol Ruka and moonsault her as well, trying for a cover, which doesn't work. However, it's time for entrant number 3, Kendall Gray, to enter the match, and she makes an immediate impact, stopping Kalani Jordan's one-of-a-kind moonsault, going to the top rope with her as she German suplexes Kalani off the top rope to the mat. And after taking down Sol Ruka to the outside, Kendall connects one hell of a Shades of Grey onto Miss Jordan, scoring the fall and sending her to the penalty box. But Sol Ruka gets back into the match with a springboard dropkick. Then she picks her up, though Kendall gets out of dodge and locks in a sleeper hold. But before you know it, Sol stuns away out of the hold, springboard clotheslining the Evolved Women's Champion down. Though her follow-up moonsault is evaded, as with the gap margin opened, Kendall takes full advantage of this and nails a Kendall slam. She's looking for another point, which is something she can't get just yet. So she tosses her into the corner, and after some counters, Kendall just clotheslines Sol back down to earth. And after an attack to the leg, Kendall decides to pay another tribute to Kurt Angle, as she locks in the Kendall lock on the injured leg. Sol Ruka has nowhere to go. She might tap. That is until Kalani Jordan interferes, tossing Kendall to the outside before locking in a half Boston Crab onto Sol Ruka. As she wrenches and wrenches on the injured leg, yet Sol still won't budge. She's refusing to give up, just like she did against Blake Monroe. But Kalani is keeping the hold in, that is, until Kendall comes to the save, headbutting Kalani as she goes to the top rope and dives onto both women. And with Sol Ruka rolling to the outside, Kendall Irish whips Kalani before ducking under, leapfrogging over, and finally pop-up kneeing her in the gut, roundhouse kicking her down. Kendall Gray might have a second point, though thankfully for everyone else, this isn't to be. As Kalani even counters Kendall as she goes for the one-of-a-kind moonsault, which gets beautifully turned into a fireman's carry by Kendall, though she fights back, just in time for Sol Ruka to nail a 450 clothesline onto both women. And with her getting the pin on Kendall Gray before she could do the same to Kalani Jordan, Jordan Grace enters the war zone at number 4. And she instantly turns this match on its head, catching Sol Ruka mid-dive as she just Rikishi drivers her onto the floor. And after being chucked into the barricade, she discards her away just as Kalani Jordan looks to dive onto her as well, suddenly catching her and driving her into the concrete. As after throwing her into the ring, she connects the Juggernaut driver, bridging into the cover to get onto the board. It's as easy as that. Then she eggs on Kendall Gray, who just got released from her pod. A dream match already to some, as Kendall manages to hit a quick fire slam, trying to get her head on the board. Though this doesn't work, as Jordan Grace kicks back, staggering the Evolve star long enough for Grace to Michinoku driver Gray down. She's done! But thankfully, Sol Ruka breaks it up, which hurts her leg in the process, as Grace then just hurls her away like a sack of crap, although she gets hit with a German suplex right onto her neck, which beautifully transitions into an armbar. But the same story happens again, as Kalani takes it to the outside and sends her into the barricade, before quickly going into the ring and finally connecting the one-of-a-kind moonsault to score a point on the board. All 4 women are tied, and with Lullabies coming in at number 5, the match then goes back to our timeline. Aside from Sol Ruka's absence, as she'd merely sit and clutch her leg in the same amount of time. And with Kendall Gray ultimately winning by scoring 4 points, that is my perfected deadline. But what would you have done differently? Well, let me know, as if you like this story, I think this might interest you.